I'm joined again by Amanda for the Q&A this week. Amanda, remind everyone who you are.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I work with Eoin at Prosperous and I am the marketing manager there.
Excellent. You have some questions for us today. Let's just jump straight in, will we?
Hi, I hope it's okay to ask for this advice. We'll be inheriting 180k next year. Just wondering what your advice would be to do with it. We're married in our 50s, earning 100k and 40k. 3 kids are on college age, but we have a savings plan for this. 5 years left on mortgage. Husband has a good HSE pension and I have no pension. We have no other significant savings or debt. We'd like to put at least a chunk of the money towards post-grad support for the kids. Thank you very much.
Nice position to be in. They seem to be in a strong position financially, don't they? Couple of things that would jump out at me there. First of all, you've just inherited some money. And one of the things I like to do is I like people they're about to inherit money. And I hope it's not someone too close. If you're listening, hope it's not someone too close. And hopefully it's a distant relative giving you 180 grand, but that you've never met. But anyway, what I would say is when you inherit money, I think you need to sit back and say, what would that person want me to do with this? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a real honour and respect for what they stood for and what you meant to them, to kind of bring it on a little bit for them, to use their money to do something that they'd appreciate that you did. And it's probably going to be something for yourself, and they'd appreciate that they did that for you. So that's first and foremost one of the priorities I would have in my head. What would they want you to do? What legacy would they want to create for themselves? Beyond that, though, a couple of things that jump out. The college, the post-grad costs. A good financial planner would sit down and say, okay, how much money is that going to cost? And they'll say, let's just say it's going to cost X. They'll work it out, it's going to cost X, so you need to put Y away today. So, I don't know, it's going to cost you 30 grand, you need to put 25 grand away today because in 5 years' time, then the money will all be there to cover it. And they'll siphon off a chunk of that money to be able to do that. Be interesting to see where the mortgage is at. There's 5 years left on it. Would it be worth, even if it doesn't make financial sense to clear off the mortgage, would there be enough there to clear it off in full and get the emotional benefit of clearing off the mortgage? Clearing off the mortgage isn't always the right thing to do financially, but I think there's a real emotional benefit when you're clearing it off in full. You look a little bit confused by that suggestion.
No. I think even maybe assigning the money to sit aside, it is within the next 5 years, as you say. Like anything that goes into investments is always 5 years plus. So, you know, the mortgage is something that it's going to come up in the next 5 years anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's going to be gone in the next 5 years, but it's just, and that's why I'm kind of going, it's going to be gone in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
But there's probably very little left on it, or a manageable amount left on it. It's probably not affecting them on a day-to-day basis all that much, but there is that emotional benefit to get it done. Yeah. And again, back to that kind of respecting the wishes.
That little weight lifted. Yeah.
But if it's someone who was very close to you in particular, the fact that they got to clear off your mortgage for you is a nice legacy for them to have left behind.
Yeah.
And it's something I would consider. It's hard to say whether it's the right thing to do or not without knowing the exact figures. And I do think that that's what it needs. The other thing that jumped out was 100 grand and 40 grand. One of them's HSE and a good pension. One of them has, I don't know why I assume the 40 grand. I don't know if it picks something up in there, but the person on the 40 grand is the one without the pension.
But we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But what I would say is a chunk of this, people often forget, particularly people who are PAYE workers, you can up until October, if you're doing your tax return in paper, or middle of November if you're doing your tax return online, every year you can put money into your pension for last year.
Yeah.
So at the moment we're recording this just at the end of October 2023, you can still put money in for 2022, okay, if you haven't done your tax return yet. If you are a PAYE worker, you should be doing a tax return because you're more likely to get tax back than you are to have to pay extra tax, and it's the right thing to do. So people don't realise you can still put money into pension for last year. So that person with no pension could put money into pension for last year, put money into pension for this year, and take a chunk out of that 180k.
Whenever it comes through, do a back payment into so that would be the first piece.
That would be the first piece.
That they
don't seem to have any short-term debt or anything else.
No.
The final thing I'd say to these people though is, it's 180 grand. Make sure you have the taxes sorted out, by the way. Make sure you're aware that there might be taxes to be due, particularly if it's a distant, long-lost relative that you haven't spoken to in a long time. You could potentially have tax bill to pay there. Make sure that's on hand. But you're in a good position. You're in your mid-50s. People who have a financial planner have 2.5 times the net worth of people who don't when they retire.
Yeah.
You've got a few quid there now to pay for some decent advice. Go get some specific advice for yourself. Whether it's from us, I'm sure Amanda's going to say, no, it has to be from us. Whether it's from us or for somebody else, I really think it makes sense that you would go and get some advice. This is potentially life-changing money. And you could wake up in 10 years' time going, God, I wonder, could I have done that differently? And that's what a financial planner, the difference they're going to make for you if you get the right one.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think, like they said, they have something in place already for the college. They really seem to have a good idea of what they want from their finances already. And just with getting that bit of an, I suppose, a bump, investing in a financial planner would be a
Did
great
you see
thing
the
to do.
person 2 weeks ago? Not that Saturday, the Saturday before. And obviously this is going out in 10 days' time. So it would be 3 Saturdays ago when by the time you're listening to this. Doesn't matter. But someone on the Q&A said that person who was on the podcast seemed like they had all their stuff in order. They were talking about Connor. Why would they go to Prosperous?
Yeah.
I was pulling my hair out. I was going, listen, my answer to that is there's things that people don't know they don't know.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
that's what a financial planner is for. But also, people who have a decent amount of wealth really benefit from a good financial planner.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, it was a Saturday afternoon, I saw the question, I was banging my head off a wall. Have I done that bad of a job that people don't understand what a financial planner does?
Yeah.
And look, yeah, it's great and it makes great TV to go on and tell someone how much they're spending in pennies, and it's useful and it's very beneficial for lots of people. But there's a whole spectrum of advice there that goes from people who are really struggling, who are not struggling at all.
Yeah.
And a good financial planner will be able to help them all.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Did you pull your hair out when you saw that question, or had I dealt with it at that stage and you were grand?
I laughed at your response.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go with the next question.
Hi Owen, how are you? How does one, I guess, put money away with a view towards investing and become of the attitude that it's not going to be lost, I guess, that investing is more of a means with a purpose rather than a hopeful punch into thin air kind of way? I come from a family, let's say, whereby Mum and Dad's feelings will be very much of the opinion that the safest place to have your money is in the bank because it's there when you need it. Thank you for your help all the same.
I think this is a real Irish mentality.
Explain that to me.
Just with how we feel our money is safest in a bank. You know, that, you know, you always you hear the negativity more so on investing and losing money.
Yeah.
And I think that's where like people do kind of struggle with whereas is this going to definitely benefit me, and the uncertainty behind it.
Like we've looked at numbers today already around like inflation and what it does to your purchasing power of your money, and the stats stack up. It does not make sense long term to leave money in a bank account. It's not the safest place for it, right? It's better than the mattress, but it's not the safest place for it. And what's interesting about that person's question is that they whether they realise it or not, they're still being influenced by their parents and their relationship with money. Like one of the things I find funny is people say, oh, I wouldn't put money into shares, or I wouldn't put money into a pension. Sure, my friend lost money on a pension, right? That's a bit like saying, I wouldn't eat food. My friend got food poisoning. Like, it's the same mentality, right? And if you think about the question that person just asked there, right? They said, like, that it's not just going to disappear. Right, now just think about this for a second. Like, Amanda, I'm going to put you on the spot, right? Think about the biggest company. What's the biggest company in the world in your head?
Google.
Okay,
Apple.
Google, Apple. Any more?
Trying to think now. Tesla.
Okay.
There's massive Coca-Cola.
Okay, right, we've 4 or 5 there, right? So we've a couple there. Let's just take Coca-Cola. Imagine you owned a tiny bit of Coca-Cola. Right? So that's what investing is. You buy a tiny bit of Coca-Cola. Now, can you imagine a circumstance where Coca-Cola goes from what it's worth today, which I don't know what it is worth today. Probably should have went with Alphabet because I know it's worth, Alphabet is Google, right? Let's jump to Alphabet.
Yes.
Alphabet is worth over $1 trillion now, is the market cap. So the value of all the shares is over $1 trillion, right? Could you imagine a circumstance where Alphabet would go from being worth over $1 trillion on the stock markets to being worth 0?
Yeah.
Like it's possible.
Yeah.
It would require a hell of a lot of kind of maybe internal fraud and a whole pile of other stuff to be going on. The internet would probably have to be broke forever, right?
Yeah.
So it's to go from where it is to be worth 0. And I mean even the buildings to be worth 0, all the assets it has been worth 0, like for it just to be wiped out completely, right? Now, it's not just that if you invest money, you're going to lose it all because Alphabet went to 0. Because when you invest money properly, it's not unusual to be invested in 10 or 12,000 different companies. Now, when it's hard to imagine Alphabet going all the way to 0, Google going all the way to 0, try and give me a circumstance where the top 12,000 companies in the world all go from whatever they're worth today to zero in one go. And I guarantee if you can come up with that catastrophic event, you're not worried about your money.
That's what I was going to say. The last thing you're going to be worrying about is your money.
And this is the thing that people really struggle with. They kind of go, oh, but I could lose money. It's shares and I might lose money, right? Yeah, you could lose money. But if you stick in with it, things recover and things come back.
Yeah.
And the threat to an investment or a pension even going wrong is not the underlying investment. The biggest threat to an investment going wrong is the behaviour of the investor.
Yeah.
It's not the investment going wrong, it's the investor doing the wrong thing at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. And I've stolen that from someone else, but I love it. The wrong thing, the wrong time for the wrong reasons. Can't remember who it was. I'd give them credit if I did. And I just find it phenomenal that people say, oh no, you know what I'm going to leave it in the bank account where I'm guaranteed to lose money over time, because I'd be afraid of sticking it in shares in the biggest companies in the world where they're all going to progress and they're all going to be in a better place. Overall, on average, they're going to be in a better place in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And I think that person really needs to sit down with somebody and get advice for them, and get someone to explain it to them for the first time in a way that they understand, because I don't think investing has ever been explained to them properly before.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything on that question? Because I got caught up with that whole going to zero thing that he kind of mentioned or referenced.
No, I think it definitely covers, I suppose, the mentality behind getting into the right mindset of, you're not just investing in, say, one company. And, I suppose it's all about getting the right advice. Yeah.
And that's a really important point. It's about where you get your advice.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he probably loves his parents, but I'm not sure his parents are financial planners, wealth managers or advisors.
Yeah.
And they've done okay and they've done all right. And I wouldn't say this to their face, but I'd love to show them how much better they could have done over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Let's go for the next question.
Hey, Eoin, my name is Dave. Just really wanted to know more about investing in Ireland. I've listened to numerous podcasts, UK and US based podcasts, talking about investing in global index funds, but it just doesn't seem as clear cut in Ireland. I'm not currently investing in anything, nor am I paying into any pension plans. So I suppose pensions versus investment in global index funds, etc. Any information will be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Owen. Love the podcast.
Okay, what I would immediately drawn to there is that he is getting a lot of information from outside of Ireland, UK and US. One of the serious disadvantages we have in Ireland is when it comes to investing, there's a big decision you have to make. Are you going to go active? Or are you going to go passive? Right? Yeah. Passive is where you buy just the entire stock market. You buy all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Active is where you pay a fund manager to look at the stock market and buy the good ones and avoid the bad ones.
Yeah.
In the hope that what they will do is after charges, they will beat the stock market.
Yeah.
Okay? 40% of fund managers will beat the stock market in any given year. Over a 30-year period, less than 1% of fund managers, when you allow for charges, will beat the stock market. It's not that I'm saying, what I will say is it is possible to pick a good fund manager.
Yeah.
It's just not probable, so we don't do it. Right? So that person is gathering a whole pile of information. It's really useful for them to understand how investing works and the world works and everything else, but they're not understanding how the world works. Ireland is its own little country, all on its own, with all its own little rules, right? We are a small economy, right? In terms of the greater investment world, we are a small player in all of this. We punch above our weight, absolutely. But for the retail investor in Ireland, there isn't a whole pile of us. And therefore, one of the things I find absolutely opaque is when a fund manager goes to beat the stock market, they have to pay for their own home and their Harvard degree, and the team of 15 people who work with them have their Princeton and Harvard and Yale and all of these degrees, and they've got their own mortgages to pay. So they charge. And they charge you a lot to cover their costs. And they fail to beat the benchmark, right?
Yeah.
Statistically, they fail to beat the benchmark. Now, in Ireland, what you would expect is that you would expect it to be the same as the US. Buying the index or buying a stock market fund is really cheap in the US, and a fund manager is expensive. In Ireland, they're often the same price.
Yeah.
And it absolutely drives me nuts. It makes no sense that active and passive would be the same price. Right? Now, it's not always the case. You can buy some cheaper funds here in Ireland, but you cannot invest in Ireland as cheaply as you can invest in, say, the US. That's why sometimes on a Saturday, Amanda, you'd see a question coming in and it would be, I'm here, I'm living abroad. Should I invest here or should I invest at home? And 9 times out of the 10, the answer is going to be invest wherever you are, because it's going to be bigger than where we are here.
Yeah,
and therefore you're going to get better charging structures and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I went on a rant there about passive and active. That person, if they're listening to US stuff, and UK as well, more so the US, they're going to think that they're going to get it much cheaper by going passive, and it's not always the case. By just buying the index is not always the case in Ireland, because we just have a messed up system where we don't have the economies of scale to drive down costs. Was there another question in there though?
Yeah, I think it was just going more towards the charges and stuff in Ireland and involved in investment. That's what I kind of got.
Oh yeah, sorry, he did
well.
say that, and he also said, should he invest in a global fund or should he invest in a pension?
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
Sorry, I know the question now. Interest, we did cover earlier on in pod, I know you haven't heard it, right? But we covered charges. The 2 charges to be looking out for is allocation rate.
Yeah.
You need to get 100% allocation, and annual management fee. In and around 1.5% would be normal enough for an Irish market. And if he's listening to US podcasts, he's probably hearing you can invest in the stock market for 0.8. That's 0.08. That's 8 bips versus 150 bips, which is what would be typical here, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say is that, yeah, charges is something you need to be mindful of. The 2 ways you get charged, allocation rate and ongoing management fee. In terms of should he invest in a global ETF or should he invest in a pension? He needs to invest his pension in a global ETF if that's what he wants to do. And people often think it's 2 different things. Should I invest or should I invest in a pension?
Yeah.
When you put your money into pension, it's just an investment with great tax relief on it. And the problem people have is getting their head around that is okay, so now I've put my money into pension, I've got tax relief, it's going to grow tax free. Then you have to make an investment decision. And that investment decision might be, I'm going to go active or I'm going to go passive, I'm going to buy a global ETF, I'm going to buy a bond fund. What am I going to do with it? And that's where people need to tie the 2 things together. It's not investing or pension. You can take your pension and invest it.
Yeah. And I suppose the main difference, I suppose, from a pension and an investment could be when they can access it as well. You know, so like, I suppose the question, I'm thinking maybe that's what his mentality behind it was, is something maybe the investment could have been
shorter term.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's about getting your finances sorted, that you say, right, what do I need in the next 5 years? Which I keep rabbiting on about today. What do I need in the next 5 years? That's bank account stuff. What do I need in the medium term? That's investment stuff. What am I happy to leave for the long term? That's pension stuff. And it's about getting that balance right to making sure you're ticking all the 3 boxes.
Yeah.
That's us for today, is it?
Yep. That's everything.
Amanda, let's make your life a bit easier. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know your number?
Yeah. So thanks everybody for sending their questions in so far. We do still have a couple of questions that we might not have got to yet. They might be suitable for a different topic that we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. Or your question could be covered in a slightly different, it could have been asked in a slightly different way. But for anyone who has a question that they would like to send us, the number is 087 291 0507. That's 087 291 0507.
So people can send their questions to that number.
And by voice note.
Voice note for questions. But also if they've...
just short voice notes.
Okay. And you see, every week it's a different pain for you, Amanda, right? So a short voice note to that WhatsApp, to that number.
Yeah.
Also, if you've got any comments, any suggestions, anything about the pod, if you want to come on the pod. If you want to
come on,
if you want to come and join us on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Don't worry too much. We are covering different topics each week. If you have an interesting story, we want to talk to you. Get in touch with Amanda by WhatsApp and say, this is my story. This is why I'd love to come on the pod. Or if you have suggestions of who we should bring on as well. Let's make Amanda's life easier, everyone.
All our lives easier.
Thanks for coming in, Amanda.
Thank you.